I'm going to sit here. I'm going to be like this with my
Laid back,
hands like this.
just constantly like that, like you're just
Constantly like
petrified
that.
by what's going on.
Yeah. Well, to the side, that's more petrified. I don't know what
Okay.
that is. That's not drying my nails.
Or sizing something up. Like I'm just
Yeah,
constantly thinking about the size of the box for my packaging,
you big yeah.
constantly. And if I stay like this, I'll figure it out. Um, so James, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to kick this off, to be honest.
Well, this morning I woke up to a WhatsApp message from you saying I'm ready to jack it in.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that I mean we obviously will discuss the reasons why. I think I'll probably start by saying I'm not going to, but that is my uh that was definitely how I felt. That was definitely how I felt. So
Tell me why.
yeah,
For
so yesterday actually I was in a good place. I'd driven over to go and pick up the latest sweater sample, and Jason's done a really good job, and finally very happy with that and ready to move forward. So it's all buoyant, all stoked. And there was an email. I thought I'd just check my email before I drove back because it's about an hour's drive each way. So I checked my email, and there's an email in from the factory saying, "Mark, please call when you can. Full stop." That's it. No idea what else is going on. And I was like, you you know you know immediately with with something's going on because the idea was that the peacoat would be delivered, the final sample of the peacoat would be delivered on the 17th, which is that today? Is the 17th today? No, that was
yeah,
yesterday.
yeah.
So it's supposed to be delivered yesterday. So I get this email in, and obviously I'm aware that I don't have the peacoat in hand. And if the factory is getting in touch with me, there's something going on. So phone the guys, and yeah, basically the issues, the main issues that came up in between sample one and sample two were that there was a collapse in the reveal where the lapels connect. Um, the lining was too tight, so it was pulling. Um, and there was and I think possibly part of the same problem was that there was this kind of like fullness of fabric across the chest in places. So that we identified that in sample two, and I worked with the pattern cutter to identify those problems and create solutions. But they're there again. They're there again in sample three. So like that was August that we found out the problems with sample two. September that I had the problems quote unquote solved. And we're now in December, 3 months later, end of December, going into Christmas. And not only has sample three not been delivered, but the problems are still there. And I was just like, like I made this very conscious decision that 2024 would be the year that I stepped back and got the foundations in place, found the experts to work with in terms of pattern cutting, found a factory to work with so that I could split out the work across specialists, figure out the logistics and all that side of things. So I was kind of gearing up, ready to go into January and be like, right, I've got my Pico. Yep, happy with that, ready to go. This is the hero product, and I'm ready to go and ready to start the year on a high. So to get that back and be like, well, I'm not going to get the Pico back, of course, because there's still a problem. I can't go to the original pattern cutter because she had all the issues in hand and she hasn't solved them. So there, I don't see the benefit of going back to the same pattern cutter. Um, and so I need to find a new pattern cutter and one who's willing to take on a project partway through. And I totally understand why a pattern cutter might not want to, because it's way more difficult. And I remember when people would come to me and be like, "I've got this website that's half done. Can you finish it for me?" And it would always take 200% more time because you've got to unpick somebody else's spaghetti, and everyone does things in their own way. So I totally understand why a pattern cutter might not want to take this existing pattern and kind of move forwards with it. I mean, either way, it's the 18th of December. So no matter what, I've got to wait until people are back in, and that other projects that were kind of rolling, I've got to fit into there. So it's hugely deflating to be in this position, thinking that I was going to go into the year and really hit the ground running, and actually be like, no, I mean, of course, December 31st, January 1st, it doesn't matter. You know, it's not some magical date where everything refreshes, but there is an innate sense where you're just like, it's a new year, it's a new start. Here we go. This is what I've been working towards. So yeah, it's a massive kick in the balls to be in a position where I'm like, no, no, it's just more of the same graft.
Well, I can say I know how you feel.
Hmm.
Well, I guess well, it's probably it's a money thing, really.
Is it a money thing?
If it was well, and let me explain that. And
Sure.
I feel this as well because I've heard of things like if the money's there, if there's a large pot of money there, you could ride
Yeah.
out these things and just put it down to I've lost time, but I haven't lost income.
Yeah.
Like really easy for it all to mulch into one. And
Yeah.
I feel that for I mean I feel that frustration, like for reasons that we've spoken about with on previous episodes. Factories close, and then you're like, shit, how do I do
Yeah.
that? And but
Yeah.
it's purely because you just want to get to selling.
Yes. Um, I think that like, well, I was just about to say 100%. I would say 60%, 70%. Yes. But I think that the difference being that I've been gearing up towards this publicly as well. Building up the content to be in a position to launch this, and paying for PR to say the Peacoat is going to launch in January. No, it's not. No, it's not. If I'm lucky, I'll launch it in March whilst it's still cold. But my experience is that it's more likely to be June, which is another 6 months. And so, of course, yeah, you can keep scratching under the surface, and money is going to keep coming up. Um, but there is also this sense of competency. Like I am doing everything in my power to make this happen. And I'm working with people who are specialists at what they do. And the pattern cutter that I worked with has serious experience with men's outerwear. So it's not like I'm going to a women's athletic wear pattern cutter. I'm working with someone who's a specialist in this niche, not just in pattern cutting. And so it's hugely frustrating to to be in that position where because you're like, well, if she can't identify the problem, uh, someone can. Of course, someone can. But there's the time and all that sort of stuff. And I think that if this was all behind closed doors, I'd feel much more comfortable about it. Or if it's out in the public, but I'm working with cheaper fabrics or whatever, and I can do it at a more affordable rate. But when you ramp up the costs, working with fabrics that are costing you now because they've gone up by 8.65%, or will do as of January. So pre VAT, it's £77 a meter.
Yeah,
I use 3 meters. That's just in the Melton, let
yeah,
alone the silk lining, let alone this, let alone that. So there is a price point that it has to sit at in order to make the business work. Now, to me, if it's going to sit there at that point at £1,500, there has to be mastery behind it. And I'm not saying that there, by the time the Peacoat launches, it won't have that mastery behind it. It's just that a cock up like this seems so fundamental to the understanding of that skill set, that basic skill set of bringing the design to a pattern and on, that there's a uh, I can't think of the word. My brain is saying dichotomy, but it's entirely the wrong word. But there is an imbalance there. It doesn't seem right that you can have this product that you're trying, that needs to be charged out at this much, that doesn't have this mastery behind it. And it's frustrating to put that out into the public.
And yet mastery comes after mastering all these things.
Yeah, I
Which
mean, don't get me
it's
wrong. Like there will be in that final product, like because I'm not putting it out with this cock up. We will find the solution, and we will be able to move forwards with that. And I won't half-ass it. Like if it means scrapping everything and starting again, well, so be it. So it's just that in this moment, it makes me feel very uncomfortable. It makes me feel very vulnerable to be like, here's this luxury product. It's not been made properly.
but and it's not a luxury product at the moment. And I don't mean that saying what you're making isn't luxury. I'm just saying
Yeah,
right at the moment, because there isn't a product finished.
yeah,
Like at the moment, you're just going through it, so maybe you can take off that pressure. It's an absolute, you know, nose to work out. But there are when you say specialist, that's probably an interesting word because one makes an assumption. It's like the EOF dilemma, the egg on face dilemma.
right.
Sounds better as EOF, but
EOF. Okay.
because you make a decision, you're like, they're a specialist in what they do. So
Yeah,
you made that decision to go with they're not the specialist you had expectations of,
yeah,
but also they may never have been, because if they,
sure.
because you can work for all these brands. I often think, and there are so many people involved in making clothes,
Yeah.
and it's really it's unknown. People just don't realize.
Mm.
And there's not just the pattern cutter. There's like the pattern cutter and the pattern cutter's assistant, and then the garment tech and the garment tech assistant, and
Yeah.
there's all of these people that when there's a problem, it's just kind of picked up and worked through, and it's like, sample 3 isn't right. We need to do this, this, and this
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And no one really questions
Yeah. I
necessarily.
mean, I think that's where where this is where I know that I'm working with the right factory, because they stopped production. They realized that there was a problem before cutting the buttonholes in. And they were like, we've stopped it because we can still see there's a problem. If we put the buttonholes in, it's going to kind of mask part of that problem because that fullness will be taken care of. It'll be pinched in. But of course, it's going to come out elsewhere. The problem is still there. But the fact that they've stopped it and called me and said, this is, rather than just going, yeah, yeah, just carry on. Here's the pattern. We make it in this, and then just fire it out to Mark. That's amazing to me. In my situation, to have someone the communication isn't as good as I would like it to be on an ongoing basis, but this is where it mattered. And it feels good to have someone in my corner.
And they are good. Knowing
Yeah,
who they're. Yeah.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
just mega frustrations on. Like
It's huge. Yeah, yeah. And I think that you could never. It just all takes so long, and as you say, it doesn't, because we were talking then about like egg on face, and I think that it's burying the ego, and it is taking responsibility. I made the choice to work with the pattern cutter that I have. I made the choice to work with the factory that I have, and taking that responsibility. There's, like I see. I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but they were like, "Yeah, you must be furious. You must be beyond, like you must be so pissed off. It's taken so many months and, thousands of pounds to get to this point, and you're not, you're not where you need to be." And very quickly, I could say, "No, I'm not pissed off because it's a waste of time, for one. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of effort. And the sooner you can get past that kind of that frustration and move on to problem solving, because you can't problem solve whilst you're pissed off. You're just pissed off, and the only problem you're trying to solve is being pissed off. So for me, I'm kind of like, you know what? I made the choice to work with that pattern cutter because they were 45 minutes away and seemed to have the experience that I needed. And
Yes.
I made that choice. So, okay, it was the wrong choice. Egg on face, move on. Find someone new, find someone. And, you have to go through this process. And eventually, if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, you're going to build up that team of people who see the world through the same lens as you.
Yeah.
And, who you can work really smoothly with and just be like, hey, to the pattern cutter, like, this is the sort of design I'm thinking about. Here's the sketch, but bang. And they know exactly the sort of shoulders you like and the sort of cut. And within 2 months, you have that sample. And it's identifying those people.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, you started this from scratch because I think I've shared my pattern cutter number with you.
Yeah, reached out to him yesterday.
Yeah.
Immediately.
And he's very good, but also we were really lucky when we found him. One of my team at the time. Yeah, things just take time, don't they?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it does seem like making garments is the easiest. Not the easiest thing in the world, but find factory, make garment, right first time, probably second.
Yeah. What? That's the assumption that you make?
Yeah, yeah. What it does make me think, you know how people break down that they're very much they want to make, we want to make everything transparent, so they show the breakdown, the buttons cost this, the threads got
Yeah.
all the components cost those.
Yeah.
You could go one step further and show the number of decisions that have to be made to make
Jesus.
one
Yeah.
garment, which we don't really think about. Like everything's a choice. Like thread color. I've got latest sample of
Very
jeans,
nice. Yeah. Yeah.
and nearly we're
Okay.
nearly there.
Cool.
Fits good. So
Man, that's
fits.
90%.
Yeah, we're finally, and the wash is good. It's just not quite the one I want.
Okay.
The one I want, but it's drop down menu, choose your color or choose your wash.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll be on
Okay.
there. But thread color, but then they show you a book of thread colors
Yeah. It's just hugely overwhelming.
of jean thread colors, which we're talking like shades of orange to yellow, of which there might be 50, but then they give you 4 books from different suppliers. So that's a decision of 200, trying to pick something in varying light. And it's really difficult to pick a color from a book if it's not, and a thread, because it's in contrast to everything else.
Yeah, this is it. And if you don't have the exact wash on that you want, it's not like you can put the thread over that and be like, this will work. And even if you can, it doesn't until it's actually stitched and you've got like the 3D and the shadow. I'll tell you what, here's a perfect example that I can add on to your jean situation. So getting my latest.
Top front, isn't it? It's like middle-aged man trying to make a clothing company top front.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, here's my and I literally have like a card. So what I
Colour
decided to
20. Yes.
so what I decided to do with the sweaters
Yeah.
was to make them in a light color because that way I can make it in the light color, do all my photography, and then I can Photoshop it into whatever color that I want it to be. Easy. Especially, I'd done it in a black and you couldn't see any of the fashioning, you couldn't see any of the details. So I was like, right, I'm going to go for a light color. So I was like, right, I'm going to go for this 136 Tiara. Here we are. For those people watching on video, you can see there. Right. Do you want to see what that actually turned out like?
Yeah. Like a Moulinet yarn. Yes.
But how would you expect to see these bits of blue? There's
Show
no
me the color card, and I'm going through a screen on this. Show me the color card again. Specs going on.
This is pretending to be in there. This is a bit that's going to ruin my game because it looks like a black spec. There we go. Sort of. Right. Right. Okay. So there we are. There's my finger on it.
Oh
Where
yeah.
are, where are the black? Where's the black? There's zero. Seriously, there's no black.
So what do they say? What does the front of the card say, or do they have any hangers in the back of the book?
No.
It's just color.
Although here, although this has nothing to do with it, but it says 136 Tierra,
Yeah, might
which is
come
our
with
one
black.
there, contains 3% viscous nap. I can't see that's. I can't see. Yeah,
How do
I
they describe the yarn?
they don't. I mean, it's all just it's all just a 100% merino wool. That's the only description. Obviously, apart from 136 Tierra, which is the one that I used, I can't think that the 3% viscous nep, unless that is the black specs. I'm not sure, but you know,
Hmm.
completely unexpected. Completely unexpected. But
Let's have a look again.
and I really feel like it's worked out very nicely this time around. So it's a 2x1
Yeah,
rib on the cuffs, the hem,
it
and the
looks
neck as
nice.
well.
It looks
Yeah,
nice. It kind of
yeah.
like
It's nicely fashioned on the back.
I think
There's no threads, there's no stitching. It's all nicely linked together.
yeah,
It's a
it's
beautiful
funny, isn't it?
quality thing.
Because I look at that and I'm like, oh, that's quite nice.
Well,
Without
yeah,
the because you made a decision as you would look at these jeans and be like, oh yeah, that's good, that's
yeah,
good. And then
because you don't have any of that. Those thoughts. I wasn't expecting it to have that kind of the flex throughout it. And so I'm looking at it, I'm looking at that as a fault. Whereas someone else is like, oh, that's got some really nice, that's really nice. That's really lifted it by having that rather than it just being plain. Yeah, very nice. But it's complex. It's complex. There's no denying it. And the fact that you like obviously I'm going through a journey that you went through many years ago, but it's not like it's completely smooth sailing for you.
no, and when it has been, I'm trying to think actually of the what have I had recently? Had the caps. I had some hats back, and I was like, that's just going to be an easy thing. Been wearing the first sample, trying to not
Yeah.
touch the table.
First sample from the first sample or from
This
the
is the
new.
first I would say.
Yeah, we've seen you in that, I think, on a couple of
Yeah.
the episodes. Yeah.
Then this came back.
Okay.
Now,
It's hard to tell from here. The only thing that I can tell is that the peak is more rounded around the edges. Is that just because it's flat and it's
it's
got no curve to it?
yeah. Well, I asked for it to be this hat. It was a bit big, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it was like that much too big, so I had to pull the cinch in that much,
Yep.
which kind of might be okay. But the peak, and they bound the first peak, binding around the
Okay.
edge.
Yep. Yep.
That's how I got that. And I didn't want that. I wanted it just to be plain.
Okay.
But the shape of it is like it goes
Yes.
through.
It's the shape of it and it's also the angle of it. Like the peak points down slightly on the first one, whereas it's just
Yeah.
flat out like a new era flat.
Exactly. It's like a
Yeah.
totally different hat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's like you get if you were to give a sketch of the hat and say, I mean, this is it. This is the fact that you can create tech packs, you can create patterns, but still you can end up, like how do you obviously now you need to say, well, it needs to be at the peak needs to be at this angle.
Well, I never changed that as a comment. And then I was like, brilliant. Make those comments. I'll just run with it in the four fabrics. Let me show you the four fabrics. Oh. Two of the fabrics, tailoring wool, like nice. I
Yeah.
can't remember because they're dark grey and black.
Right.
They fused them, and I didn't want fusing on them.
Because you want it to be soft.
I wanted it to be really soft because it's a foam peak and you can just scrumple
Yeah,
it up.
yeah, yeah.
And these, so a same pattern, okay?
Okay.
Same pattern,
Yeah.
come out about an inch smaller.
Okay. Now I understand that with the wool being softer, being this, being that, but that's you'd have to cut it smaller. You
And the peak
is
is
not rounded.
smaller. The peak is a different shape.
But that's not that you didn't give them the feedback about changing the peak at this point, or you did, or you
I
had.
have all these 4 hats should
Yeah.
look the same peak. And then
Right.
I do the denim one.
Right.
The denim one is bigger than the first one. And I can get away with some things. And now I'm trying to word it in such a way that doesn't make it sound like an ass. And they did this horrendous wash. Like, this wouldn't even make it into the final remnant bin of a 10-year-old sample sale. I wouldn't
I'm
be able to put my name in that.
I'm getting it.
Wouldn't
I'm definitely
be.
getting a kind of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air sort of vibe from that wash.
And I was really looking forward to this, the
Mm.
denim. I was like, this is going to be like this wash.
Yeah.
They washed it as fabric, then cut it into the hat. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like a
So
market.
it's like a camo. It's like a camo. But again, you know what? Like someone else could see that and be like, "That's cool." But you have to go with your gut. You have to go with you.
Not if
You
you
are the
buy
North
them
Star.
both.
Star.
Not if you buy them both, and you're like, oh, brilliant! I want these 2 hats because this one,
Yeah.
it's like this is like the size of my son's baseball caps. He's 6. This one is bigger than my head.
But why?
This one, and they all have different peak shapes, and I'm like, I don't even know how to like consider. Bearing in mind the peak is foam. I mean, it does sound like 2 middle-aged men ranting, but it's considerably. It's like a
Yeah. Yeah.
centimeter difference
Yeah.
on a peak, which should be standard across the
Just a
board.
standard, consistent, like it's already pre-cut, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And this, I think this is, it's
wild.
incredible. Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, that's incredible because that's all at the same factory. Now, I get it. If you're having the same thing made and you're maybe having one made in Vietnam and one made in Cambodia or something like that, completely different factory, you're going to get different results. But within the same factory, that just seems bonkers.
Within the same factory, cut at the same time, made at the same time, room like
Made by the same person.
it should be. I imagine it's the sample room, but at least cut. It's so bonkers. So you're trying to communicate all this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So that was there, and I'm like, oh, we'll get there. Like maybe it's the same with you, but other things that you're doing. It's like just give me one thing that's right. I'll just go.
Yeah. 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 Like I was trying to explain to Amy when I got the buttons came back, and I was like, the joy that I got, not not because they looked great, not because they felt great, not because they were the right solution, but because it worked first time.
Yeah.
You know, uh, and it feels ridiculous that you can almost be brought to your knees in joy or in unhappiness,
Yeah.
with the results that you get back in those situations. And yeah, I think that was, I mean, it was the same in August with the sweater. I mean, I think before August I started working on that, and like I was just like at that stage, let's say it was beginning of Q2 this year. I was like, I just need a win. I just need a win. This sweater just needs to work. It's simple. Like I'm not asking for anything complex. And again, December the 17th, I've picked up the final sweater and I'm happy with it. But it's taken 9 months to get there with a number of non-wins instead of just that one win that can make you go, yes, I'm going to continue, because it chips away at you. It just keeps chipping away. And then you get a call that your Pico sample 3 isn't right, and you just feel like jacking it all in. You're just like, there's only so many non-wins that I can take.
Yeah. What came to mind just then? It wins. It slipped my mind what I was going to say to that,
Well,
but
I tell you what, non-wins being not the best word in the world to use, I think setback was the word I was looking for.
these things that don't. Oh, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking when you use the word specialist, that's just kind of been ringing in my mind every time.
Mm,
Every time
mm,
we've spoken, because I have the same and similar thing. Like you work with a factory, so you think they can do. So I had this with not this jeans factory, but the jeans factory before.
yeah,
And this was after me making jeans for a long time, but having a really good relationship prior,
yeah,
and perhaps underestimating, not even not maybe not underestimating, but or taking for granted, or I just found myself around very good people
okay,
who they could understand what I wanted to do. They had the experience and the skill set and the aesthetic to create what we were wanting to create.
yeah,
And then now maybe I almost feel like skills are lost or
hmm,
they've never been there. But you think, they're a factory. So I make certain assumptions that they can do the thing that they say.
yeah,
And that there are lots of things being lost in garment making that also perhaps have not been there as much as we think they are at. And I was having a combo for a podcast with a guy called Felix, who's part of a tech startup called Trust, Truss, and they're doing quite
okay,
cool stuff, AI with the secondhand market. So do some cool
okay,
stuff. And they've been building these archives, basically like a one-click AI that will, in that picture, and this is as I understand it, layman's
sure,
terms, but would
yeah, yeah,
be able to date and basically give the background history of that garment,
okay, okay.
brand, fabric content, year it was, like quite in depth. I don't know how they build the back end of that, but
So but we're not talking secondhand like vintage. We're talking about like sought after rare pieces.
sought after rare pieces,
Hmm.
yes, because Vinted's got a really low barrier to entry, but Grailed has a huge like requirement to put
Okay,
something on there for authenticity reasons.
sure, yeah, yeah,
And what's happening in that world is that these archives are being built of the brands that were in that 90s, 2000s period, Helmut Lang's,
yeah,
this, that, and the other. But there was a real depth in the product and the thinking, and I think the manufacturing back then
yeah,
that
okay,
has only been flattened over time. We were talking about like the flattening of this stuff
yeah,
to kind of now, which is Instagram, and it's like people just want the look of the thing to take a
yeah,
picture. So they can wear that garment to take a picture. So you get this kind of fast fashion combo, but it
yeah,
misses the depth,
yeah,
which come from a 50-year-old factory of really skilled people that have been doing it since they were probably 15, like old
yeah,
apprenticeship, etc.
yeah,
But then it's not done like that. Computers replace it to make efficiencies. So you flatten
yeah.
out the product, and then product becomes a bit like meh. Like modern
Well,
product seems a bit meh.
yeah, and I agree. There's that side of it, which is almost to me is like kind of like the craftsmanship and the soul of it, like working with people who really know what they're talking about. But there's also, and I think we've probably already spoken about this, but the enshittification of clothing because of the fact that you bought a pair of jeans and you spent 120 pounds on them 15 years ago. And so you go to buy the same jeans, you expect to pay 120 pounds for it. But with inflation the way it's been recently, but of course just over 15 years, you should be paying 175, 195 pounds. But they're still retailing for the same price.
Best.
And so there has to be corners cut somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's in it God, I mean, I don't know if you could cut the cost of how much you're paying to get them made any more than these brands have. And so then it comes down to the fabrics and the, well, instead of doing 12 stitches per centimeter, we'll do 10. And so, of course, it falls apart.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting how, or interesting, terrible word, how skills are lost, but we make assumptions on so much of what we're told. And then
Mm.
when we find something that really is amazing, like really like staggeringly just touches your soul. And I think that can be anything from a simple t-shirt to a peacoat or a piece of tailoring.
Yeah.
It blows your socks off.
Hmm.
That's a lifetime's work to get that.
You know what? I mean, I absolutely, it's a lifetime's work, and it is also perfect place, perfect person, perfect time.
Yeah,
You know, you could have perfect person, perfect place, but they're not looking for an oversized, slouchy kind of suit jacket, blazer.
yeah,
They're looking for something, you know, they're being influenced by stuff around them that's, you know, that's more fitted. And in 2 years' time, you could be exactly in the right place. So there's so much that needs to come together. It's literally like magic.
yeah. I think it is magic. A
Mm.
lot of stuff that I've written as early piece stuff behind the scenes. It's kind of like a miracle. It's like a
Yeah.
miracle
Okay.
and magic of the thing that you're holding in your hand that is the
Yeah.
result of conversations and chance meetings, because you could have found, pattern cutter or machinist could have just had it. Son or daughter might have got cello grade 5, so comes in absolutely like bouncing off the, walls with excitement and just
Yeah.
you just feels high on life and just creates this a garment that you've never seen before. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Or they just, cats got run over
Yeah.
and it's just terrible.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this.
There's so and as you say, there's so many people involved in the process. There's so many opportunities, and I think that anyone who's starting up, that would be what I'd say to them: is everything is going to take, unless you're very lucky, everything is going to take 10 times longer than you think because of how many people are involved. Say, for instance, like even if I do everything I can to get the pattern, say for instance, I have the pattern in hand, I have the fabrics in hand, but I'm waiting for the buttons. So that pushes me back by 3 weeks. Then I send all of that stuff up to the factory. Then I go into the process. Okay, we can start this in 6 weeks' time because we need to stop all production to make your sample. Cool. Oh no, actually, the person who is going to cut your fabrics, they're unwell, or they've just had a baby boy. Great, lovely, but nevertheless, so that pushes things back a month. And
Yeah.
then it just at every step there is the possibility that things are going to be delayed.
Yeah. And you picked quite a complex set of starting points with
Yes.
peacoats and coats and
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I think it's something that I was thinking about recently, and looking at other brands who who seem to have had momentum, and looking at what they did and being like, you know what? If I had started with something that was a single fabric, I would have made my life a hell of a lot easier. But when I mean, the Pico's one thing. When you look at the Lawrence, it's got like 6 different fabrics going on in there,
yeah,
and the different processes and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, could I have made life easier for myself and kind of given myself those wins by approaching it intelligently rather than from the gut of like, no, this is what excites me, this is what drives me, this is what I want to create. Maybe doing something commercially a bit more viable. Yeah, I don't think there's any denying that.
yeah. Be interesting to see when you do launch and then 12 months in, 18 months in, what product looks like.
The same product or my product range?
Your product range. Give it
Hmm.
then because I'm, as I look at, I mean, piece hoodie, piece jeans, all of that stuff. Like, which are the things that stick, and then which are the things that you iterate on and move on
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
things simple.
Yeah.
So and I guess remove the inefficiencies of many working parts or many moving parts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hoped and hope that the Peacoat will do that because as much as it's this beautifully produced product, it's still very simple in terms of the amount. Like it's there's no interfacing. There's Melton and silk and the buttons. And the shoulder pads and the shoulder head roll. Nevertheless, like it's like it's the overall is that it's like it's got an outer and a lining, and so in terms of the actual fabrics, the actual products that go into bringing that out, it should be simple. But I think that's the whole thing. Again, if you design your house so it doesn't have coving, and it doesn't have skirting, and it's minimalist, you've got to get all of those angles perfect. Because otherwise, it's really obvious. Coving and skirting boards, they all hide, a multitude of sins. And I think that's where I'm at with the Peacoat, is that I can't get away with that extra fabric because it is made to be cut to drape in a certain way. It's fitted and all that sort of stuff. So it's like creating this minimal thing. You reduce it down to its bare bones. It means those bare bones better be the best they can be.
I think that then each part of that then comes under scrutiny, but you can't do that. You can't scrutinize until you see something to know if your pat cutter is right. I mean, I think
Just
it's in all things.
Just hugely disappointing though that it's the same problems. It's the two main problems that we identified. Like we made other changes between sample 2 and sample 3, brought the
Yeah.
sleeves a centimeter shorter, cinched in the waist a little bit more, brought it round on the arch at the back. But so I don't even know if those things have been successful or not. But those are new changes. Like the existing, this is the fundamental problem with this coat, is still there. That's the kick in the teeth.
Did you get it buttonhole?
No, that was the good thing. Like, so, I mean, I've obviously only spoke to them yesterday, but the idea is that we leave it without the buttonholes in because there's still the opportunity to adjust that garment. But as soon as the buttonholes go in, then we're done. But I've also asked for that to go to they work with a pattern cutter. And I'm hoping that he's going to say, yes, I'll look at this rather than like get out of town. This isn't
Yeah.
my design. And if he
Yeah.
says that, then start again.
Yeah.
It's all I can do.
But you've got quite a good basis
Yeah, yeah,
of what you've got, measurements
yeah,
and then etc. So
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I imagine if we were to start again, you're not starting from scratch. You have this clear, like these are all the measurements we're looking for. It's just fixing these issues, but maybe they want to do it with their own pattern from the beginning based on those measurements.
I mean, sometimes that's easier. And then
As I say, it was the same with the websites, unpicking someone else's work. I totally get it. That doesn't mean that it makes the other pressures any easier. As I say, kind of like spending the money on the PR, gearing up, communicating with my customers, and kind of gearing up into that, and then being like, actually, sorry guys, as you were, stand down. See you in 6 months' time in the middle of the summer. Then I will be selling you a heavyweight peacoat.
winter always follows, doesn't it? So
Certainly in England, it certainly does. But
yeah, you just have to maintain moving forward, despite
maintain moving forwards. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because
Maintain moving forwards, and also maintain communication with the customers. Um, the only thing that holds me back is that like I mean, obviously I'm going to be publishing this, but is that that direct kind of transparency. I try to be as open and transparent as I can, but we talked about this before, where you want to speak from the scar, not the wound. And right now, it's very much a wound. And I want to talk from a place of being like, this was the problem. Found a new pattern cutter, really confident in their work. They know what needs to be done. I'll be in touch soon.
I think speak from the scar, not the wound, because I mean, it's a good story when it does come out, because it'll be 3 pattern cutters, 4 factories, X amount of cloth. Sleepless nights later, we've perfected it.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
just
I don't know who it is who he's speaking to, but there's that podcast, The Factory Next Door. I think I told you about it. A guy called Steve Duke, lovely, lovely guy. Had a really nice chat with him. But in his intro to The Factory Next Door, he's speaking to somebody, and he says, do you ever have sleepless nights? And the guy who he's speaking to, who runs the factory, responds, he goes, I don't sleep. I don't sleep, Steve. And that's definitely how I've felt recently.
just piece of life.
Yeah, and I think that it gets missed unless you do it yourself. It's the sheer size of the risks and the input when you are. And I always struggle to use the word or to describe myself as an entrepreneur because I just feel like it's a little bit grandiose. But like it describes what we are, I guess. And the the level of risk that's taken and like over the past 4 years since I set up Barnfield, I've definitely not made the money that I could have been making if I'd been working somewhere. And that somehow the hope is that you then kind of make that up, to be able to fill the coffers again that have just been slowly being eaten away at.
Yeah.
But the only thing that you have no guarantee, there's no proof that that's going to happen. You just have to hope.
Well, people want to support others,
Hmm.
actually. And then when you've got something to buy, then you can sell it. And I guess you're at the stage where you're feeling like you haven't got the thing
Yeah.
um, just yet, but you might have something. There might be a precursor. There might be a presupposition of Barnfield before you get to the big guns, which is the
Yeah.
big reload.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, and the Pico's never going to be this like, you know, it's certainly not going to be a mass market mega earner. It's a hero product, and it's going to appeal to some people. And yeah, no, I'm like I'm with you. It's it's a challenge.
yeah,
It's a challenge, and I
well,
really I'm just, what I was saying to Amy, I'm so bored. Like, so I'm meeting up with a friend of mine tomorrow, a photographer who I haven't seen in months. And he took the photos of me in the Pico, the first sample in Bolton, or in the it's not the Peak District. Can't remember where we were. Beautiful photos anyway. He took those in January this year, and I'm going to be catching up with him. He's like, cool. So where are we at? Like, where's the Pico at? Where's the development? I'm going to be like, yeah, in exactly the same place it was when we were taking photos a year ago. And I'm so tired of telling people how much I believe in Barnfield and how it's going to be this thing, and I've seen all the signs and all that sort of stuff, and it's all this theory. I just want to be able to be like, here it is in practice, whatever it is, whatever that looks like. Here it is in practice. The fundamentals of running a clothing business is that you have to have some clothing to sell,
yeah,
and I cannot wait to have that clothing in hand to actually be able to fulfill that.
yeah. And you can get there. I mean, I with peace, I've kind of probably always thought that whatever is the first thing, it's gone from just start with one pair of jeans, and then it
Yeah.
was jeans and t-shirt, and then it became a full thing, and then there were more. But I'm compiling. I guess I've done many iterations behind the scenes
Yeah.
and worked through that could have been costly, even down to branding. Now that logo still stays, but then I was saying, there needs to be another thing, and kind of gives you time to tinker away.
You mean without making it public?
Yeah, without making it
Yeah.
public, and then to start talking and making it public.
And this is the thing that we were talking about off podcast the other week when I was saying how often people will say to me, if you had your time again, what would you change? And up until now, I've been like, well, I wouldn't change anything because unless you give me a different situation, like, what would you change if you had £1 million? Okay, fine. Like, I'd be able to tell you what I'd change. But you tell me what I would change, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't. Up until now, I've said I wouldn't change anything because nothing's different. But I did kind of start to think if I had my time again, would I be as public with the building part of it? Because you end up in a place where you're constantly then having to create content to keep that monster fed. But at the same time, it might be a day like I had yesterday where I'm just mentally like just absolutely hit sideways by this situation that I've got to wrap my head around, that I'm not going to be able to start 2025 as planned. And how am I going to adapt to that? And so it's the last thing you want to be thinking about is creating content. So if I had my time again, on the surface of it, given that, I would say I would focus on product first, get the product dialed in, then start to communicate it. But then, of course, it swings and roundabouts, pros and cons, because then I've now got an email database of nearly 4,000 people who've registered their interest. I wouldn't have that if I hadn't been building in public.
Yeah, it's probably, well, there isn't every decision's a good decision at the time because it's the one.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I've done a lot of talking and iterating, hoping that when I go, right, I'm going to start to be more public facing, part of that will expedite, or I won't be chasing my tail in the same way to create content because there's a bunch of stuff done, like the iterations of branding, all of the
Yes.
stuff can be shot,
Hmm.
it's there. So it's like, wow, we went from this to this. This was the goal.
Yeah.
I've gone on this spaghetti western, journey to get
Yeah.
to, and we can't come out with something better. All of these significant.
And I think that what I would do is I would document the process as much as I possibly could. I would keep it behind closed doors and be really meticulous about dating the folders and all that sort of stuff, and kind of putting a description so I knew what was happening, even kind of keeping a journal. So almost doing everything, but not in public. So you could even have your Instagram, you could still be updating your Instagram account, but have it on private or something like that. So you have this journal and then you launch it up. But just because you don't want to be in a situation where you're like, right, now I need to start drumming up interest. And I have gone straight from not zero to here's a beautiful photo shoot that then I'm having to, you're spending the money on the photo shoot, but you have no community or anything for it to go out to. So it's just landing, or launching to crickets, as they say. So yeah, I think that's the answer. Continue to document as much as possible, because then at least that content exists.
Yeah, just work quietly behind closed doors
Yeah. Yeah.
until, now we're good to go. I mean, it will get there. It will get there. I'm feeling quite. 2024 has been what a shitty year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But good in others, I'm looking forward to when we can actually sell some product.
Yeah, it's going to be really nice. It's definitely going to make for a different podcast.
Yeah.
And I think that of course is going to bring its own challenges.
Number of conversations. I mean, I've been quite active in the last few weeks.
You're saying, yeah,
We not necessarily recorded, but we've kept loosely up to date with each other. Just the number of conversations I've had across the various things that I'm doing, and just so valuable and helpful. And I think this goes back to when we first started talking,
yeah,
like finding the medium that you're comfortable,
yeah, hmm,
and then things start to make sense. Like I can now
yeah,
see, hear the benefit of what we're doing in this, because like I say, that there's a guy that connected with me through LinkedIn who'd heard one of our first episodes, which
yeah,
you've been putting out. Like,
yeah,
you've been knowing how to interact with it other than
sure,
record. Almost, I feel like this right now is documenting it behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah,
I'm
for
not
sure.
sure. But he heard it. Super nice guy. Had a lovely conversation with him. Really
Okay.
experienced designer, doing some great things.
Yeah,
And he got in touch because he liked it. And then you're like, oh, so, like minds. It's
yeah,
there.
yeah,
And I think there will be a diversity. There'll be a breadth of people that find us that will have different,
yeah.
that will come through Ad We Move podcast, and then
Hmm.
people I'm sure is going to have this kind of conversational side to it that will find Fred, they'll find T and they'll move across. And
Yeah,
really, like, not everyone's supposed to like everything garments wise, product
sure,
wise.
sure.
Hopefully you'll find your thing. It's like, oh, actually, you know, not so piece aesthetic. I'm more Barnfield, or you just bring
Yeah, yeah,
look, there are
yeah.
these people doing these things, and choose your outfit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be eventually there'll be plenty of people listening to what we're up to who have zero interest in clothing, but again, maybe not even inspired, but just enjoy being part of the journey, and maybe kind of being like, I'm not alone. Like listen to how Mark started off this podcast, just being absolutely gutted, and then in 3 or 4 podcasts time maybe I've found a new pattern cutter and everything's fixed and it's all guns blazing and I have launched in quarter 1. That's I'd like to be part of that journey from the outside and not having to deal with all of the barriers.
I wonder. I mean, I kind of feel that's how it will. And yes, that's all theory and two middle-aged men talking, in their sheds about how it's all going to
Yeah.
come together. I think it does.
Well, look, at the end of the day, brands like McLaren came out of a shed. So, you know, I'm not that I'm in a shed, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think I think you have to go through all these things, and I think there's something in of recording conversation today. Um, I'm gonna say with consent. That makes me sound like I was a co-worker. Conversation,
Recording someone else's conversation, recording a conversation that you were part of.
I was having, and really about expressing yourself. Like there's definitely a need to do Barnfield. It's like a personal journey. Same
Yeah.
with peace, and almost the setbacks are. I think the setbacks and the frustrations are actually all the same. They just repeat. I do think they're simply repeating patterns. Because I've got this thing about in my mind, it's amazing. I can talk it up, get people excited, and I'm not communicating the information with the clarity and the precision
Okay.
to get what I see.
And I think, yeah, that's so important.
Four hats being the four hat samples were kind of being the effect of that.
Oh, okay. So you're even from the production point of view, not kind of communicating exactly what you want the end
Yeah, and,
product to
and
be.
maybe
Hmm.
that's not believing in myself, not giving it the time, not really thinking I'm worthy of it subconsciously,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then rush what I'm doing. Like there's something in it because Hat Factory is amazing. Quality of the hats, super
Okay.
nice.
Okay.
Looking at hor- in my opinion, horrendously dyed denim.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Horrendously what denim. I assumed they would wash it as the hat and treat it like a pair of jeans rather
Yeah.
than they washed the fabric, cut the fabric, so made this patchwork of my first denim cap. Uh,
just to jump in there, could they, or would the foam disintegrate as part of that process, or would it be okay?
that is a good question. We would see in the what?
I guess foam you'd be okay. I know a lot of peaks have got card in them, which is obviously be a
Yeah,
problem.
card. I mean, most of it's plastic these days.
Is it? Yeah.
But they, with the washing, they kind of spray them,
Hmm.
and then wash. They do various processes too, but I'd expected it to be like that rather than they
Yeah,
wash their hat
a
and then
quilted, yeah, patchwork.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what I haven't even got words to describe it. It's not how it. Um, but yeah, it comes back down to me. But for me, that's a repeating pattern of not quite, not slowing it down,
Okay.
trusting myself,
Hmm.
thinking clearly exactly what I want, and then delivering that
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
I enjoy conversation and get a lot from bouncing off each other
Yeah.
until I guess until we get there, until we get to that point. But oftentimes with the factory, they just want the information. They don't want the middle bit. They
Yes.
just want to be told what to do. So what you tell them to do has to be
I think I think that's anything that has an end. Somebody is required through that interaction to provide an end result, whether it's a product or a service. Because exactly the same was with Robin doing the PR. You know, like when I started with him, he was like, you know, can you write up stuff about you and Barnfield? And I answered three questions. He sent me over a bunch of questions, and I answered three questions, and those three questions took 8 sheets of A4 for me to answer them. And I sent it over to him, and I was like, just before I go any further, because you got 10 questions you want me to answer, am I on the right lines here? And he was just like, I need a paragraph for each of those questions, not 3 pieces of A4. And I was like, almost like what you're talking about. Like, I was like, I thought I was having a conversation. Like, the more information that I provided to Robin, he would then be able to filter through it. You know, but if you're asking someone to filter through that kind of information, there's a much higher chance that they're going to read the wrong thing. You know that you're not. There's so much there. The emphasis and the priority is gonna it could be all over the place. Whereas if you can cut it down and you can be like, tell me about this about your life, and you can in a paragraph, then there you go. There's the answer, and it's exactly the same with you with the hats. So tell me exactly the angle of the peak that you want, exactly the shape, exactly the size, and we can make it. Have a long conversation about it, and we may or may not get the right answer.
yeah, and that's really yeah. So I just think they're having had a number of conversations this last week. Feels like they're all repeating patterns. Even what
Mm.
what
Mm.
we've talked about from our past and then this happening
Yeah.
because we want to put this thing out into the world, which
Yeah.
is an expression of us.
Hmm.
Because peace is very much kind of, you know, me or my kind of wanting to be probably comfortable with myself,
Hmm.
and that's how I and it is seen. I was talking to my
Yeah.
sister last night, and yeah, I mean, you are that, like,
Yeah. Yeah. The piece is an extension of you. Barnfield
yeah,
is an extension of me. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you have to be really comfortable with that, and then I think when one has that comfort, things start to flow much better.
Well, it's much more authentic. And so you're being authentic to you on a day-to-day basis. And I think that that's a big part of the problem is when I first started up and I was building in public, I didn't want to be authentic because it would show that I didn't know what I was doing. And why would someone want to buy from me when I've just demonstrated I don't know what I'm doing? So that's the speaking from the scar, because at least I'm 4 or 5 years down the line now, and I've learned a whole shit ton through getting my face smashed into the wall. Um, but just to interrupt, your audio has suddenly improved massively, and I'm worried
I
that
I
you've.
I am I am also worried because I I am also worried because I hadn't plugged in headphones. So this whole conversation
But why?
might.
But why has your audio from my side improved by you plugging in headphones?
Oh, I don't know. That I don't know.
Unless it's,
I haven't done
has it got a
anything.
microphone on your headphones? It does, doesn't it? I think I can
It
see it.
does.
And I think now it's going from that microphone. I've got a horrible feeling that it hasn't been reading from your desk microphone. It's been listening to your laptop microphone.
Bugger. Well, we shall see. And if that is, that's the benefit of doing it all behind the scenes.
We need a standard operating procedure. We need
We
a
did
checklist.
have it. That's my bad because I moved from upstairs to downstairs. But yeah,
Well, hopefully the audio will be okay. It's just that because you have been recording on GarageBand, so hopefully
yeah.
GarageBand has been recording from your
Well,
microphone.
it should have been picking up this microphone.
Maybe GarageBand is, but I don't know whether Zoom has been
Is as
picking up
well.
something else. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, this microphone has been into GarageBand. This microphone just is probably in Zoom.
It's so much better. It's like, here's my professional microphone, and here's my headphone one, which is much better. Anyway, I think we keep our fingers crossed that we don't ruin our listenership of 6 subscribers on YouTube currently.
I'm.
There's people listening, whether they're subscribed or not.
Well, just that one guy, Lloyd. Super nice conversation with him. There are loads. We're learning. Yeah, we're not Joe Rogan levels yet. There's a whole bunch of.
We could be, but we need the same thing. Joe Rogan has Jamie. He's got a producer to make sure everything's set up. You just sit down, and this is when you are a founder of one. It's coming out with the podcast. You're having to set up your video, your audio, and everything.
What I do enjoy is talking to people who are going through similar things, though.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It does, and that's probably what I get most from.
Okay.
Our conversations, because so often you just kind of on your own, trying to share it with your partner.
Yeah.
Who doesn't always get it, other than I find mine gets frustrated with my not progressing at the pace that.
Yeah. See, I think I'm very lucky. I think Amy's kind of like, like she's just totally supportive of it will happen when it happens. She sees that I'm working hard on it, so she doesn't kind of question that. That doesn't mean that, like, the other day we were having a conversation about the fact that I was like, I think we said it, I was saying at the beginning of this, like, she doesn't feel the same joy that I feel because it's in me. It's inside me. I'm feeling that emotion when I get those buttons back and realizing that that's enough to overcome the months of shit leading up to that. Whereas she just hears the months of shit. So it's kind of like, well, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, because look at this button. That's why I'm doing it. Because look.
It's necessary as well. It's also necessary to not, what can easily be done is no one wants to see someone going through a hard time or going through a dark phase.
Yeah.
But don't pull that person out. That I think is really important. That you just got to go. You've got to go through all those things.
Yeah, being the support sorry, go on.
Like, go through the dark phase of like, fuck, am I ever going to get this peace thing going? Because it's something within me. Like, it would be very easy. Oh, just go and do something else, or go.
Yeah.
And then it's another thing that's unfinished. If it's me that chooses to go, do you know what? I literally, almost not. It's I can't do it. I think things naturally divert off to something else if they're going to go that way.
Yeah.
But you don't get to the diversion if you stop and then follow someone else's route.
No, just constantly doing this, right?
Yeah.
Instead of that kind of like the curve to mastery, as it were, you're just constantly like stop starting.
Yeah. But I think having that, like, just those conversations, because I think we're all going through it. You're all trying to figuring out, and I think people want to express themselves.
Yeah.
And we found a way. I don't know. Maybe it's men. Maybe it's I don't know. I don't necessarily
I
think it
think
is.
that's
I think
probably
people
no.
want
I
to
was just going to say,
create.
I think that's just the circle that we're that we are in at the moment. The fact that we work in menswear,
Yeah,
I think
as men.
that we all want to create. I think women have an opportunity to create through childbirth that
Yeah,
that we're not as much a part of, and so potentially that drive to create something, that has legacy is part of that same drive for men. Not sure.
yeah. But I think there's something in it. But you've got to let people go and do their creation.
Yeah, yeah. As long as it's not impacting the people around you who need to rely on you or whatever, like or not for too long.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. But if you see I'm always buoyed by James Dyson. Like he was
Okay.
like on his arse, wasn't he? Until
Yeah.
it's like seventh or eighth invention.
Yeah.
And then the big one came, and
Yeah. And you could talk about standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Like so each thing that he did was standing on the shoulders of the prior one.
yeah,
And that's the whole thing. You get this peacoat done and then do an overcoat and it's off all the learning of that
yeah,
overcoat comes that much easier.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you'll get there. Right people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just so far, just haven't found the right people. And as you say, it comes down to money because you only have a runway for so long.
Yeah,
And you're kind of like, well, I didn't expect to spend 10 grand on getting to this point without having a peacoat in hand,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So, and realizing that, well, maybe it's another 5 grand.
yeah,
And it's 15 grand instead of a potential like two.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you just hope that the longevity of the brand, you keep pushing forwards and, how quickly you make that 15 grand back over the course of 10 years of selling peacoats.
Yeah. I think that's it. Is you've got to get to the first selling of the thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's why I'm kind of that's why I'm bored with like jeans. Going, I know what it is. I
Yeah.
need,
Yeah.
need 8.5 grand to make 200 pairs of jeans.
Yeah. I think it's just that thing where I just feel I don't I don't ascribe to imposter syndrome. Like I can be in a situation and be like, I don't know as much as the other people in this room.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel like an imposter. I'm like, great, I can learn from this situation.
Mhm.
But I do feel there is something massive missing from someone who is set up and publicly owns a clothing business with no clothing to sell. That's what really sticks with me at the moment, and that's what I was hoping to overcome. But
Yeah.
I will. It'll just take that little bit more time.
Yeah. But yeah, you've done that because the piece will launch as an idea
Mm,
about people
yeah.
who actually all seem to what I've realized, they all share an aesthetic, and then
Okay.
putting that aesthetic through. But really, they've gone through shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What did Agassi say? It's like it's kind of easy when you hit rock bottom because there's something to push against to send you
Yeah.
back up,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Sensible.
and which I quite
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And they're all the people that I've been very much drawn to
Okay.
in that world, and of kind
Yeah.
of being then going, yeah, you kick off the bottom and you rise to the top as
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
rather people are propping you up with a buoyancy aid. Wearing a life jacket isn't swimming or treading water. That's wearing a life jacket.
Yeah. True. True.
I'll keep on saying. On that
Well,
note,
on that note, yeah, no, thank you for this call. In reaction to my, I guess it was a plea for help. Really, it was like I didn't think of it at the time. It was a, hey, this is what I've just sent to Robin, when he asked me how's it going, and you were right. Yeah, it did make sense to speak. So it'll be
well, I
interesting to
remember.
chat next time.
So I feel probably around this time of year when we launched album on the 6th of December 2005 or 2006, and we had
Yeah,
crisis talks on either Christmas Eve or Boxing Day,
right.
that we hadn't sold out all our stock and kind of basically become millionaires, which after 19 days, you know,
I love it. The naivety of youth. It's
and
brilliant.
and and we did have stock, we had it all in, and we were like, shit, what do we do? Like, maybe it's it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And we kind of tail between our legs, licked our wounds over Christmas, or certainly I did. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, we need to just reduce the SKU count and just go say we're just going to do this one T-shirt. And it was Al actually. It was like, no, let's just keep going.
Okay. Yeah.
After a year of doing PR with nothing,
Yeah.
we did some kind of launch around that time with, what they called Urban Junkies, that were like this newslettery thing based down in London. And
Okay.
again, you think, oh, we're going to go on that and then we're just going to sell out straight away. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen like that. Limped through, realized we needed to do new product for kind of season 2, just to give some newness into the range coming into Easter.
Yeah.
So we were dyeing T-shirts with Dylon
Okay.
at our house
Yeah. Yeah.
to give us new colors, because we couldn't afford to do the other ones,
Okay. Yeah.
just to
Brilliant.
send for
Yeah.
some PR.
Hmm.
Easter time, went to Fontainebleau climbing, and it coincided with, unknowns to us, 2 bits of PR about the fifth. We had 2 items in the 50 must-have items for summer
Okay.
in the Independent, and then we got a Saturday Telegraph piece with our car coat, which was our Melton kind of single-breasted pea coat, and we
Yeah.
sold out.
Brilliant. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was like, oh, this is never going to happen, and then it just clicked in. 6
So
months
actually,
after
just
that, we opened a shop.
take 2 steps back there. Did you say it was a year of PR before that happened?
Well, it was a year of reaching out to people with absolute tumbleweed,
Right.
and Al had fantastic dogged determination
Brilliant.
or
Yeah.
resolve just to keep on sending. For me, not getting a reply is kind of a real, I take it as a very personal thing.
Sure.
He was just knocking it,
Yeah.
send
Yeah.
that, send that email, just da-da-da. Like those people
Yeah.
that can just da-da-da, copy paste, bang, copy
Just
paste,
get,
bang, copy
yeah,
paste, bang.
divorce yourself from it
Yeah,
emotionally, which is what I've done by bringing someone else on to do it for me,
yeah,
with the
yeah,
added bonus that he has connections already.
yeah,
So at least you're getting a head start there. But even of course he's saying to me, I've been in touch with this person, this person, this person, and I haven't heard back. So I'll message again in a month's time. That's just the deal. And if they then have like an article to write on British made peacoats, then suddenly, bang,
yeah.
you're there. But you do have to just keep doing that. But that's an interesting insight, the fact that it was a year of tumbleweeds before the PR started to take any sort of action.
Yeah, because things do take time, but actually it
Mm.
was only a year, but we were very much, we'd spent all our money on stock. We
Yeah.
hadn't,
Yeah.
like, oh wow, this ain't gonna happen.
Mm.
And then it did, and then 6 months later, we'd opened our first store on a 6-month lease in
Yeah.
Soho.
Yeah.
And then, so and one of the customers, great guy, Charlie Gladstone, very kind of prolific.
Gladstone, Shirley Gladstone. He's very involved with the guys at the Do.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so Charlie,
Hawarden, is it Hawarden
Warden Estate,
Estate?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So kind of serial entrepreneur,
Yeah.
emailed us saying, love what you do, kind of bought the, 4 or 5 items. You must speak to, I'll introduce you to Tyler Brule at Monocle.
Okay.
Emailed Tyler. Da-da-da. I'd already gone in to see it, just these like weird, like sequential or consequential things, or inconsequential seemingly at the time. I
At the
went into
time. Yeah.
Monocle or Wink, and he was like, blah, blah, blah. Opened the first store. Tyler happened to walk past on a Sunday and came in and was like, oh, I didn't realize you would open a store, because that was on the Sunday. On the Monday or the Tuesday, we had a Monocle film crew in.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like,
It's the hockey stick curve that
yeah,
you can give up in that very mellow part of the curve is where it feels all very difficult, and then
yeah,
you just never know what's around the corner that's just
yeah,
going to go bang 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 and
yeah,
elevate things.
yeah. I think, yeah, and also wanting you want the end product to be as good as the things that your benchmark at the moment, yet they've taken like 100 years to become that thing.
I also, yeah. Like, but I want the end product to be what I have here.
Yeah.
And this is like I was on a podcast maybe 2 years ago with this guy John over in Australia, and I was saying about how that when I know what it should be, and when that product comes back and it is that, I feel it throughout my whole body. My body's
Yeah.
just like it's drawn to it like a magnet. It's just like,
Mhm.
yes, this is it. You've done it. And it
Yeah.
gives me so much fire to put it out there and belief that
Yeah.
what I've got, that people should see this thing and be part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
And whilst it comes back and there are issues, it's the worst. It's the direct opposite of that.
Yeah. Well, and anything other than kind of what you want isn't what you want.
Yeah. Are you avoiding the word perfection there? Because there is no such thing.
No, but just the thing that you want. Like
Yeah.
this pair of jeans, it's like Luce was like super nice, and it looks like more, it looks more expensive, than the other.
Yeah.
It looks like really, and I was like, yeah, it's nice. I could go with it,
Hmm.
but I just want that extra overwash on there. And then
Okay.
we're good.
Yeah. And that's it. I think you also have to decide when am I adding in more complexity because it's avoiding me actually taking the next step and putting them out for sale, because that is the absolute litmus test of whether you've got it right or not as to whether people buy.
Yeah.
And also when the brand is an extension of you, it's like a confirmation that you were right, that you are good,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
And so it's incredibly vulnerable, and you can be like, oh no, I've just got to do this before it goes out. I've just
yeah,
got to do that before it goes out, because it feels like a shield. If it is perfect, then I'm shielded. Uh, and that's when you have to go with your gut. How does this make me feel when I first see it? And if it
yeah,
made me feel really good when I first saw it, well then don't pick it apart.
yeah, yeah. On this, to that, I'm like,
Yeah.
I look at these because they got no branding on, and it's always a weird thing to see something with no branding
Mm.
on. It's like it
Yeah.
needs the branding on. Like
Uh-huh.
then I think it becomes peace,
Yeah. Yeah.
without changing too much. But then we're good, and your peacoat. Really, you're a pattern away, aren't you? You're one pattern away from your finished.
I'm always one pattern away, James. Just
But
one
that's
pattern
not
away.
much. Like
No, I know.
I'm
No,
an
no.
overwash and some branding away.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
a good pattern cutter. There's a good basis there to get. And
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll see whether this guy that the factory works with is the right person. If not, I mean, at the same time, I'm kind of looking as well. There was the guy you sent me, reached out to
he's
him on
really good.
LinkedIn.
He's really good.
I
I've
feel
given
like
you
I'm
his
looking.
mobile number, right?
Yes, but I think today I was in such a slump that I don't want to speak to anybody today, but I will try and connect. And I messaged him and said that James gave me your details. So whether he's been on LinkedIn or if not, I'll try and. To be honest,
I'm
with people on the lead up to Christmas, I feel like people are kind of stepping back already. So
I'm gonna WhatsApp him after this. I'm gonna
okay,
WhatsApp
cool.
him and you together.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's. Yeah. No. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah.
What are we on now? We're on the.
18.
We decided we're on the 18th. We could probably get another podcast in before Christmas.
Always
Let's
time.
let's try and do a. As I said, let's try and do a. This is the education that we want to provide, because I
Yeah.
think those podcasts will pull people in,
Yeah.
and then they become part of the journey, rather than it's a big leap to expect them to listen to an hour and a half off the bat to get into our story
Yeah.
to follow it along.
Yeah. 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 I mean, Lloyd enjoyed that intro one to me, and I
Yeah.
think, have you put your intro out?
No, so that's what I think I was starting to look at, but just I'm not sure if I have all the files.
Yeah.
I think I do.
Yeah, because he was like, oh, that kind of drew him in. So I think, you did
Yeah.
absolutely the right thing. I'm going to speak to him again this week, but
Okay.
there are so many people to speak to. Like
Yeah.
for We Move, there's a guy called Grayson Hart who
Hmm.
I had a CBD brand called Pure Sport, and
Okay.
they were like the first certified CBD brand for drug tested athletes.
Okay.
So it was kind of a
Wow.
big deal. He was an
Yeah,
ex-pro
yeah,
rugby
yeah.
player,
Yeah.
kind of got a bit ousted from pure sports because he's
Okay.
got some like quite uh, uh, thoughts on the world and oneness and
Mm-hmm.
duality, and it gets a bit too
Okay.
spiritual for shareholders. Like I totally resonated with it.
Yeah.
I wanted to
Okay.
speak to him for a while. Now he's launching a shoe brand called
Okay.
Heart Workshop, and he didn't know I have any history with clothes, so we were
Okay.
speaking
Interesting.
today on
Yeah.
we were recording podcasts, and he was thinking, I want to get down to, we're going to do a road trip, him and his girlfriend down to Barcelona. I was like, if you get to Portugal, I'm here, I'm in
Yeah.
Portugal. I heard it was good for garments, and I was like, yeah, that's what I do,
Yeah. Is that,
and he was like, and I've just found that human design,
yeah.
art,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
for me, like this is the way of just meeting like
Mm-hmm.
these rosters of people,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just having these conversations. Like we're doing this podcast on this. Like
Yeah.
Lloyd got in touch, and I was like, well, why don't you come on? He's like, oh, I don't know if I would have a voice for it,
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah.
like, you've got amazing experience,
Yeah.
like working as like lead designer at Wiggle, that being built up,
Okay.
this, that, and the other, working in da da da,
Yeah.
and you're like, there are so many designers, etc., as well as people wanting to start brands, and then
Yeah.
you just plugging
Yeah.
these babies together, and
Yeah.
you're like, that's super
Yeah,
cool.
that's true. You create a directory and a
Yeah.
network, and I do. I get a lot of joy out of being like, oh, you need to do this thing. You should speak to this person. I'll set that up. There's a, I'd never expect anything back from it. It's just joyful to be like, I know these people. I can make this happen.
But then it got me thinking, like, wow, Thread Equity can be like the list that Thread Equity makes is like this huge directory. Then you
Mm.
kind of recruitment consultants,
Yeah, true. Yeah,
loads of money
I
recruitment.
always,
Like it was all these
I
things
always,
spun up. I was like, whoa.
anything that creates opportunity is something that anything that's expansive and
Yeah,
and creates opportunity is something I aim to be involved in.
yeah. So yeah, like We Move podcast, I've just been recording, just
Yeah, cool.
and then going, great designer as well, who followed us on We Move because she basically like had this thing like paralyzed in one side of her body,
Wow.
like
Okay.
overnight,
Oh.
and then it was a neurological something.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to We Move podcast, that kind of helped her get through it, and it put her in touch with other people that allowed her to start walking again.
Yeah.
But as a designer, then she was a sportswear designer, got into the industry because there wasn't any sportswear for women. It was like
Yeah.
Roxy Quicksilver. It's like, I surf in Cornwall, I don't need a string bikini, and
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
so she got into that through her illness and her disability at the
Okay.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Found it really hard to get work, but then she got this contract with the Ministry of Defence,
Okay.
designing military gear.
Wow.
Military gear is all designed so you can operate it with one hand.
Yeah. Okay.
One hand is kind of a disability.
Yeah.
So she's become this kind of real hub of knowledge and resource
Like
for
an
how to
authority.
design.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
adaptive athletes and
Oh,
disabled people.
amazing.
And now she's
Amazing.
just done a big project with Berghaus on individual gear for getting more people into the outdoors.
Okay.
Like she was
Yeah.
speaking at ISPO, all of this stuff.
Wow.
We're gonna do a We Move pod
Sure.
with her because she's done,
Yeah.
she's done that. And then I was like, and Chris was like, I don't need to be on that because you'll talk about, more of the garment world. And I
Sure.
was like, well, no, let's just halve it in two. We can
Yeah.
touch on her. And then I was like,
Mm-hmm.
would you come on Thread Equity? And she was
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure. So like these two,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then we
Awesome.
can talk specifically about what she does. She's got a
Mhm.
film out, so she'll share it with her network, and then that's
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So
No,
there
I
are
think it's definitely
so
the way
many of them.
definitely the way to go. I think that there's basically I quite like that this is episodic in the fact that it's covering our journey, but then bringing in other expertise to create that education side of it. And then we could even do almost like quarterly summaries, like of the people we've spoken to and the journey we've been on.
Yeah.
What are the key learnings that you've took out of it, James? What are the key learnings
Yeah.
that I took out of it?
Yeah. And even I think it would be really interesting, like half-hour segments with Upenda. Really
Ah,
interesting
sorry,
half-hour segments.
sorry, I'm with you.
Yeah,
Amy
yeah,
tried to
yeah.
call me. Amy tried to call me, and it's gone bonkers. Right, I'm back. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, no. I think there'd be interesting conversations like a half-hour slot with Upenda. Just about
Yeah,
maybe
totally.
half-hour slot with like JC, the pattern cutter. Just
Yeah.
like how you do it, because for people that have no experience of it, wanting to just understand that world and try and piece it together, they just
Yeah.
start to talk about things that are really important for them to receive. You're going to put all this together.
Hmm.
Like we need to receive. We don't have to talk about that. We just ask them. They give all this, all the people that we've.
Yeah.
But that's a half-hour episode that I think might
Yeah.
give a bit more than us having to. It's like we want to know about pattern cutting. Like, what does someone need? You know, you work with both of us, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do people come to you with or without?
Yeah.
But
What are your
really,
frustrations? Like, and what are the questions that you're constantly having to answer?
yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think because I think that list is, Grayson would come on Thread Equity. There's Dave Keat. There are so many people, and it's
Yeah.
just
Well, and there's also like I was talking about, like Mark Larouste. So from like
yeah,
the branding and world building
yeah.
side of things, I think between us, there's a network that we could, and I'm
He,
excited about like just creating this wealth of information that
yeah,
goes beyond, hey, here's the factory that Represent are using.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's such a small part of the story.
Yeah. Interestingly, Grayson, he knows those rep guys,
Oh
and
yeah,
he was saying, do you know any factories? Like, yeah, yeah, I'm happy, more than happy to share with
yeah,
you. It's like, yeah, it's
yeah,
nice because he was talking about ego, and he's 36. The rep guys are
okay,
around 30, so there's a lot of
yeah.
young bull energy going
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And he was like, I've got friends that are in the industry, but they just, won't share their secrets. And he's like, it's just a bit weird. And I was like, yeah, it's the ego
yeah,
thing. It's like, you
yeah,
could go there, but also you're probably not making 1 million units or 1 million quid's worth. So you won't get the same energy that
yeah, 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 yeah,
the
sure.
rep get. The red carpet gets rolled out and they bend
Yeah,
over backwards because they know they're getting paid 1 million quid
yeah,
on Black Friday,
as you would.
as you would, as you would.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's some, I think there's some really good stuff that we can.
But you can also see the fear that creates that kind of like not sharing when you look at these brands. Like we were talking about blank the other day, and I think from a
Mhm.
marketing perspective, I think they're doing really well. From a clothing point of view, I haven't seen their clothing, but what I have seen across Represent, All Saints, Cole Buxton, About Blank, is the boxy, oversized T-shirt with the big brand not across the shoulder blades, but kind of lower down. To me, all the all the dimensions, all the proportions, all the placement are just off for me.
Yeah,
Like it just
yeah,
doesn't work with my design brain. But it's like there's four big brands and they've just got the t-shirt,
yeah, yeah,
And so I would also be like, ah, God, like everything's just being copied. So how do you separate yourself?
yeah. Did remember Ratner's, the jewelers? Do you know the story
No.
of Ratner's? Ratner's was
No.
like H. Samuel. He's a legend. So
Hmm.
you wouldn't have been in England in like 1984, 5, 6.
No.
So
It's very much
he
running
was like,
around in the desert.
yeah, some brilliant podcasts with him. Uh,
Okay.
Kind of a jeweler retailer, ended up building this absolute empire and just killing it.
Right.
Absolutely
Okay.
killing it.
Yeah.
Famously, had a few too many drinks at the Christmas do. I think was he a PLC at the time? So either way, his Christmas speech was like, "Well done, everybody. Another bumper year. Can't believe people are buying this shit."
Right.
Still, and he,
Nice work.
you know,
Quoted as saying,
front cover of the Sun.
yeah,
Next
of
day,
course.
Rat
Yeah.
absolutely tanked. I mean, nearly like wiped out the whole business. But they were
Yeah.
like prolific, and just there was a George from Represent was with Chris Williamson. I think that's his
Hmm.
name. There's a little
Did the
YouTube.
podcast,
Yeah,
your
yeah.
modern
Modern
wisdom.
Wisdom. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there was a not YouTube, Insta reel or
Mhm.
story of them sitting outside a cafe in America somewhere, probably LA
I think he's in
or Austin.
Austin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chris is in
Yeah.
Austin and George is in LA. So they were
Okay.
somewhere, and Chris was like, no, it was George that said, I can't, pretty much words to the effect of, I can't believe everyone's still buying this shit.
Ooh.
But not quite worded that way. But I think, that Jenna
When
so in the Kool-Aid, but I was like, he knows it's kind of, coming to
yeah.
an end, or it's
Well, interesting because we had a discussion on one of the earlier episodes where I was talking about represent and kind of being like, as when you see all these different brands doing the same t-shirt
yeah,
and you see like every other guy in Ibiza or whatever wearing that t-shirt, it's coming to a close, like, and you end up in a situation like Superdry that are just limping on and limping on. But I do think that I saw something. I think I did check out the Represent website, or I checked them out on TikTok, and I did see this kind of maturing of the product. I think they've got clever business advisors on to
yeah,
help them
yeah,
avoid that situation.
yeah, yeah. That, but yeah, and that's just a design thing. But it's
Yeah.
they're just interesting. But check out
Yeah.
Ratner, because his
Okay.
podcast, he's just been interviewed on, things, not strict podcasts, but any of those guys I just take a great deal from, because they
Yeah, because they've been through it, and like as you say, it's
properly
just
been
it's
through it.
it's just repeating, and
Yeah,
it's. I mean, look, we've got to bring this podcast to a close, but like it's the same as everything. Like every single piece of clothing has been made before. Every single piece of marketing has been done before. It's just doing it in a fresh way or presenting it to
yeah,
a
fresh
fresh
eyes.
audience.
Yeah,
And every part of business has been done before
yeah, yeah,
as well.
yeah,
So
fresh
yeah,
eyes.
there's plenty to learn.
There
Right.
certainly is.
Okay.
Right.
Cool. We'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, we'll do.
All right, mate. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.